for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever way you are at and here and able to see us is the right place for you as we delve into all the things affecting us here in the borderland and quite the busy start of the week that it is. Okay, no, I'd usually never say that. Yeah, it's a pretty slow start of the week. Don't worry. Just take a chill pill. Let's all just relax. I'm going to put on some, Pink Floyd. We're just going to have a chill out. No, that's never going to happen. But this feels particularly busy, including some things that maybe the cloudy crystal ball isn't as cloudy as it has been, because some things we've been discussing, including particularly when notice is going to be happening outside of our area, have come up. Well, we got some statewide reporting anyway coming about, including the El Paso District Attorney's Office, or the District Attorney for El Paso, I should more accurately say, as well as some new details coming out about both recent busts and the overall situation involving stash houses in the region, at least from the El Paso sector of Border Patrol and CBP, plus just some wild situations on the roads. We don't usually follow all the individual crashes or anything, but there were some very notable ones over the weekend that, well, definitely wanting to be getting into here. And just remember to stay safe out there. Also, reminder, as you're probably going to see a lot of places, you have 1 day left to register to vote. Yes, you still technically have tomorrow, but don't let the mañana attitude totally dominate here. Make sure that you get registered to vote so that you have your say in what is going on for this upcoming election. If you don't know if you're registered to vote, if you're within El Paso, anyway, the West Texas region that we are broadcasting from anyway, make sure to go to epcountyvotes.com and you can check your voter registration. Otherwise, get that done, because we're talking about elections, got the music and everything. So we're definitely going to keep that going and keep delving into all of the very many details that come along with that. So, as we have Ida Beza Gardner joining us over on the social media, chiming in on Facebook. Hello to you as well. And again, that's one of the better places you can do so. And why we mention them is you can really get at us throughout the show, add your 2 cents, etc., and really let us know, well, the conversation often takes on its own tone and tenor with the Skeptic Squad or Savage Squad. I think some have requested more. And also, just the conversation takes on the Thunderdome of comments all that way. So, of course, some political updates, including, some of the handicapping, but also just, some actual updates happening in town, including the start of a new tour for one of the, more locally based gubernatorial candidates, shall we say. So, again, quite a full docket for you all as we kick off this first full week of October now. And or second full week. I've lost track of time here. Second full week of October, getting closer, of course, to Election Day, now just under a month away. But of course, we're going to be keeping you updated and talking about all the candidates through about roughly the next month. So we're going to be checking in on some of those races and some of those situations, letting you know. But of course, a lot more details to come there, as also Ida Beza Gardner and Amber Banda chiming in, liking over on the page. We do appreciate that. Helps with all the algorithmic things. So let's dive just straight into some of these situations that we're talking about here. One of the ones I wanted to mention, because it was actually the U.S. Border Patrol El Paso sector's Facebook page posting this, which I've often said I'm appreciative of transparency, and, well, this kind of fits it. And they actually have some decent graphics to go along with it. Whether or not that's totally necessary or not, well, if it helps present information, I guess that's just in the vein of what we do here. They're giving a shout out actually to the Isleta Station Anti-Smuggling Unit for locating 41 smuggled migrants crammed inside a small and Ontario stash house. Quoting directly from the post made on Facebook a little bit earlier today, migrants were from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Ecuador, and Bolivia. And then here's the really interesting part. Among other things, we've of course been talking about not exactly prevalence, but definitely seemingly increased coming to public notice occurrence of these stash houses. For those unfamiliar with the term, we're talking about specifically that involving the human trafficking business, that as opposed to what we've been able to see and actually happened to see a minor amount of it. I think it was 2 people, sum total, that I saw at the U.S. side of the border, waiting on the other side of the border fence down in the Paisano area yesterday, actually. So not exactly what we've been seeing in terms of the videos that are out there showing streams of people coming across some of the lower points of the Rio Grande kind of thing. So this is, of course, different from that because this is not those just moving through and then going into, minor federal custody processing and then being released and then the local resources having to deal with that. But this is, of course, the circumstance with the stash houses where it is that they're then being held on to for whatever reason. But the biggest reason that seems to be coming to prevalence lately is the monetary one, namely kidnapping. Of course, we've had some other notable examples of people holding essentially, there was the 18-month-old that a woman was arrested with here recently, holding it for ransom from the rest of the parents. So this is essentially another part of that, another way to squeeze that further pound of flesh, no pun intended, nor really meant, because it's dastardly is an understatement. The fact that they have then taken, of course, the fees of thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, and then saying, well, no, you don't give us enough, so we're going to hold on to you, and then bilk your relatives or whoever we have contacts with that might care about you until they pay up. So that was one that we talked about here. And I mean, the pictures from, again, U.S. Border Patrol El Paso sector, if you want to check that out for yourself on Facebook, showing essentially, and not even a mobile home, it's really a trailer. Like, it's still actually got wheels and everything, and just people crammed in, sitting kind of like squat style on the floor, but solid, like wall to wall. Yeah, unsanitary would be an understatement, and not a whole lot of sympathy being given for those that I'm hopefully are definitely going to be prosecuted coming from that, putting people in that kind of a situation. But the real reason I'm bringing this up is some of the data out there, because getting that sense of it. I mean, it feels like it's been coming up more, but how bad is this actually? And what are the situations we're looking at here? So again, from the U.S. Border Patrol El Paso Sector Facebook page, in fiscal year 2022, El Paso Sector agents discovered 237 stash houses and located 2,592 migrants from these smuggling schemes. And congratulating there, saying phenomenal work for the agents there, furthering on with the post. And given that we have seen, I mean, don't have immediate comparisons to be made, and of course we've shared that post ourselves over on our various Facebook page. You can find it over on the Talk El Paso page as soon as I finish the post here. Up there should be now-ish as soon as the tube. Oh no, wait, Facebook doesn't like us sometimes when we do things this way. Okay, we'll have it up there for you in a minute, and so you can see it for yourself. But again, it's concerning in its own right that we have seen this happening, that we have seen this being a trend and increasingly within our area. So getting a little bit of perspective, I suppose, is helpful in its own right. So I appreciate that in turn, even though I don't appreciate the actual circumstance, because again, heinous would be an understatement. So should be posted up over on our social media now. But of course, not one of the only things going on, not even talking about related to this going on with the roads, because we also heard about the bailouts or the ditching of vehicles once that is being used for smuggling, once challenged by law enforcement in any capacity. That has been its own issue on the roads, including, again, right across the street from us here. So it hits close to home, but a few circumstances going on in a blunt of different ways. So tell you what, we're already due for that first break of the hour right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get more into those issues and a whole lot more, because there's a lot of, we got some political situations going on, a new re-election tour going on from the El Paso-based gubernatorial candidate. Yes, there's a name that you're probably thinking of, but we'll confirm that in just a minute, as well as some more reporting going on that was kind of being called for already by some of y'all. More attention being paid to anyway, the situation involving the district attorney for El Paso. So stay tuned for all of that coming up after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Out of this break, that and more. Keep the comments going and keep the likes. We do appreciate that and all of that. Again, stay tuned. Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Memorial Highway northbound at Bob Hope, there's a stalled truck blocking the right shoulder. Gateway East before Giles, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. A crash with injuries, Alameda eastbound at Delta Drive. Another crash with injuries, Lee Trevino northbound at Rojas. And an injury accident, Vista del Sol eastbound at Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Did you know that Duke basketball's famous or infamous Coach K was nearly fired in 1983? a move which would have kept his legacy from even happening in the first place. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Employee onboarding?
Automated.
Customer support?
Automated.
What if you could automate all your company's routine operation tasks and do it easily?
Lead management?
Automated.
With Zapier, you can. Zapier is the leader in no-code automation. Connect over 5,000 apps, automate almost any workflow, and streamline your team's performance without hiring a developer and with no coding required. That's right. Zapier's templates make it simple for you to automate anything in minutes, no matter your level of expertise. Zapier eliminates routine tasks and frees your employees to focus on the bigger picture. And with Zapier's advanced security features and annual SOC 2 audits, your data is safe and secure. See why thousands of companies, including Slack, Salesforce, and That's Zapier.com/radio. Zapier.com/radio.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Democrats predicted an end to high inflation, but nothing has changed. In fact, food and housing prices are still going higher. Hi, this is Stephen K. Bannon, and I urge you to protect your savings from inflation by diversifying into a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To see how it works, simply text the word safeguard to 989898, and you'll get a free info kit on gold IRAs that will explain everything. Again, that's safeguard to 989898. There's no obligation or purchase required.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And a lot of comments coming in through a variety of those. Of course, got the YouTube and the Facebook are some of our primary comments. Coming through the Twitch as well. Twitter's more of a DM response kind of thing, but whatever works for you, really. That's the right place for you to be. A few comments coming in, including Maria Kalman, quoting in a very important point that we were getting to. Promise, we just ran out of time for that first segment, about local government planning to post the migrant statistics at the EP government website in an attempt at transparency. That is correct, including its El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis. Looks okay. I'm not going to call it exactly similar because we're dealing with completely different kinds of stats, but similar in style, let's say, to the way they're doing the local coronavirus COVID-19 response and stats. So similar graphic artists, I guess, is what I'm getting at there. So it can be found. Barbara Codasco saying, it's my understanding it's up and running. Can confirm that it is, looking at it right now. Calling it, though, rather difficult to navigate and understand. Yeah, it's a lot of data, and the way that it's being put forth here, I do appreciate a good data interpretation, making sure that it's clear what the heck we're looking at is almost as important as having the data itself. But whether it's clear or not is a further point to be made. Some of the important ones, well, I'll tell you what, I'll mention that more on the second, as we, of course, mention some of the details coming from that specifically. But RJ commenting over the YouTube saying the DA and the judge tonight, a toxic workplace, municipal judge threatened victim's family. Will the DA be removed? Along with the rest, we got a real-life soap opera. I'm glad you're enjoying it, I guess. I'm not accusing you of having an overwhelming amount of schadenfreude, but, I mean, in certain ways, a lot of stuff we deal with could be called almost funny if it wasn't true. And a lot of this stuff, the fact that it is true, and we are dealing with it here, well, we'll get into that. But, of course, that dashboard, again, El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, So you can find that the Migrant Situational Awareness Dashboard, showing, among other things, part of the community releases happening by calendar week, reaching a peak. It looks like they're doing it by the number week, which I'm not sure would be the best way to do it as opposed to like an actual date, but they say for the 40th week of the year, for instance, there were 6,804 releases in our area. Yeah, I think RJ saying that they're not hardly to either enjoying it or that it would be funny if it weren't true kind of situation there. So yeah, again, according to that dashboard, 6,804 releases into the community last week. And of course, all the parts that come along with that and the local responses still being needed, as well as Eric McNabb chiming in there with kind of another issue here. Wishing happy Indigenous Peoples Day. If that's your thing, sure. We seem like we have this argument every year, so bracing for that if that comes up. Don't have an issue with that. Columbus Day served its purpose to my mind. Just shout out to my people in Chicago with Happy Casimir Pulaski Day as they celebrate that up there, keeping in a kind of better sense of the actual intention of the day itself originally. In any case, back to the stats that we're looking at here, showing that, among other things, some of the more telling data that I was looking at, including a CBP in custody 7-day rolling average, that we're also at a peak as of start of this month, with a rolling 7-day average of about 4,662 in CBP, i.e. federal custody. Also showing total amount of daily migrants received from CBP, total migrants received from CBP, listing at about 10,907 at the Migrant Welcome Center. And so there's a lot of data on here, and a lot to parse through, and we encourage y'all, if you can, being able to actually take a look at it, delve into it for yourself, and come up with your own thoughts and conclusions. We'll be happy to discuss it further, because I'm sure that this will be, again, happy that there is data out there, whether it's presented well or not. That's up for debate as well. But some of the other points that I wanted to get to here were some of the situations going on in El Paso roads. Again, we don't usually chase traffic. Not our thing. We're not equipped. We don't have a traffic helicopter, among other things, as much as I might wish that we did. But, I mean, there's just too much. I mean, one or two would be one thing, but several incidents that are causing major disruptions and or destruction on the roads. And yes, I do mean destruction. And I'm not saying this wantonly or flippantly, but if you haven't seen the video already, I do believe I've seen it online. And I think our news partners over at KFOX 14 have had a version of it where a tractor trailer carrying an oversized load stuck on railway tracks near Fabens got run into by an actual full-on train. And the video that I've seen posting online is it's there's a lot going on there. I mean, the video itself showing it, apparently no one was hurt, which I am more than grateful for. But I mean, you see these kind of things on like Supercuts online sometimes, so the fact that it happened here is pretty nuts. And responders were apparently on scene trying to unstick the truck. Happened at about 11:57 a.m. on Sunday when it happened that a train was approaching that caused the engine to derail, and apparently from residents in the area, just a huge mess, road closures and investigations happening out there. So that's the destruction part of it. But also, unfortunately, death on the roads. 3 people killed in a head-on crash, again, in far east El Paso, 1600 block of North Ascension. I think our news partners at KFOX 14 will be talking about that a little bit later, with a Ford and a Nissan, Ford F-150 and a Nissan Sentra colliding. Head-on collisions, whatever the circumstance is involving them, are always shocking. I've had cause in my own time being both in this circumstance and on-air reporter and doing the whole morning things to see a few of those, and definitely be interested to see what the investigation is coming out of that. Without knowing any specific facts there yet, I'll be very curious to see if drunk driving, giving both the time more or less when it happened and some of the details. I think it happened like early this morning. Yeah, it's that would be my initial assumption before seeing any exact facts here. Hope that's not the case, but given the 3 dead is a part of it, yeah, that tends to be more than a part of it. Some more comments coming in, of course, online. And then, of course, another semi-truck rollover between Mesquite and Vado Drive. Yeah, so just what I'm saying here and bringing up all of these is be careful on the streets around here lately, folks, because I'm not saying this is part of a trend or anything changing, but, I mean, 1 is a fluke, 2 is concerning, 3 hopefully isn't becoming a trend, but, yeah, and RJ putting it, overweight containers overloaded have consequences. I always wonder, like, how do you get stuck on train tracks? And well, there's part of the answer there as well. And RJ saying specifically also to the idea of putting it as a TV show, that it's disappointing, disrespectful to the voters and citizens, and these people are acting like crooked politicians in a TV show. Sickening. I'll definitely agree with you on that one, even though I still stick by my idea that it would be funny if it wasn't true. But some of the things that have been, what I'm referring to there is, of course, the situation and the controversy lately surrounding the district attorney's office for El Paso. And some of the questions that y'all have been bringing up has been, where is the rest of the state and or country on this? Have this not been making that kind of news? Well, not sure whether this was a, monkey's paw wish kind of situation or the cloudy crystal ball getting clearer. But, well, Texas Tribune out today with an article entitled "Chaos Surrounding Rookie El Paso DA Yvonne Rosales Fuels Concern About Walmart Massacre Prosecution." Subtitled, "Mistakes and Backbiting Have Engulfed the El Paso County District Attorney's Office. Some question whether she is competent to handle one of the most high-profile death penalty cases in recent Texas history." And, yeah, including specifically that picture of the hearing recently-ish. Guess it was July already, geez. Where I do believe that the gag order was issued. So there is increasing amount of attention being paid to it. Of course, we've been talking about this locally for a while now. I mean, anyway, we've been discussing it locally, but I'm not surprised. This is getting some more national or statewide attention, and including chronicling some of the rocky starting going back to, so it's kind of a decent primer in its own right, if you want to think about it that way, about a lot of the kind of concerns that have been surrounding the district attorney's office lately, and including, comments from some of those that had been involved in the running. And yeah, so it's a good read. If you want to go check it out for yourself, we'll probably post that up over on our social media as well. Again, the Texas Tribune article, in this case, entitled "Chaos Surrounding Rookie El Paso DA Yvonne Rosales," and search it for yourself. And more comments coming on not sequitur things. Maybe we'll deal with that later. But to say that this is concerning about how that case will be handled and will be prosecuted is I think, very, very paramount concern for a lot in this community, because if this is not handled right, there's a lot of the reasons that we talk about it the way that we do and keep bringing you the coverage on it, because knowing what's going on with it and knowing what will be happening, we've followed the status updates and many of the changes in prosecution. But if there were to be anything happening that would allow this to not be fully handled and be anything besides a satisfactory result, I mean, whatever the legal process ends up going through, I will accept. But if it's anything about it like a technical nature, I can't imagine that being anything good for anyone in this community here. So that'll take us through that next break. Now, coming out of this break, getting into some of more of our election coverage. Again, some of the updates coming out of, well, both some of the major races, as well as a new chore, quote unquote, starting from the area. So stay tuned for that and a whole lot more coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Comments coming in over on the social media. We'll delve into some more of those anyway, and a whole lot more. Phone lines a little bit later. In any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A total of 3 people died in a head-on crash in Far East El Paso today. The crash happened at about midnight in the 1600 block of North Ascension Street. According to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, a Ford F-150 and a Nissan Sentra collided. 3 people in the Nissan were killed. Their ages ranged from 18 to 20. There was 1 person in the Ford. They were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. That crash remains under investigation. The Democratic candidate for governor of Texas will be back in his hometown of El Paso this week as part of a college-focused tour. Beto O'Rourke will host a town hall at UTEP at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. It'll take place at the El Paso Natural Gas Conference Center. The deadline to register to vote for the November election is October 11th. Recent polls show that O'Rourke is trailing behind Republican incumbent Governor Greg Abbott, who is seeking his 3rd term. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police responding to an accident Joe Battle Boulevard at the Edgemere Boulevard northbound on-ramp. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder Memorial Highway northbound at Montwood Drive. An injury accident eastbound Rojas Drive inside the loop just before Joe Battle. And police are working a crash Alameda Avenue eastbound at Delta. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warm Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for another rainy day here in the borderland. We are looking at a 40% chance for rain here in El Paso, 70% chance in Las Cruces. We're also looking at a high of about 73 degrees in El Paso, 71 in Las Cruces. We are going to continue to be seeing these cooler temperatures sticking around throughout the weekend, as well as that rain. Of course, we are going to be keeping a track on that. We are expecting to see that rain returning in the afternoon hours.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses create bold signs to make big impressions. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 12/31. Visit staples.com/thisisyoursign for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, "Best product I've ever used," and "Amazing, I love my Navage." Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
The UN just demanded all central banks to stop rate hikes, and now any recession is expected to be short and sharp. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso. And of course, you can leave your comments on a lot of those pages. Also, the Twitch stream, twitch.tv at Andrew J. Polk or Andrew J. Polk. I don't think there's an at in there. In any case, we mentioned all those, so you can leave your comments going on over there. A lot of people chiming in, including Richard Janicek, RJ, Eric McNabb, Ed Clore, Ion Grimm, Barbara Carrasco, Maria Coleman, Ida Beza Gardner. Dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate. James Holmes, Ion Grimm, Amber Banda, and Ida Beza Gardner. Of course, I'll have those phone lines open up a little bit later in the program there. So making announcements once we'll start getting to those calls, of course, here. But one of the things I wanted to mention here is, of course, we have launched into our election coverage, and that means a lot of things. Going to continue our candidate interviews, but as we do most Mondays, just reviewing some of the coverage. So, of course, we have branded and everything. So let's go ahead and launch into more on the decision coming up for 2022 in the midterm elections. And, of course, we'll be continuing that. So any candidates out there, make sure to check your inboxes. We're sending out emails and making calls a lot. Of course, we're going to be trying to focus on many of them, but by nearest our count, we got about 50 and change, give or take, people to get interviewed, along with, of course, some of the ballot items, including about $500 million in just the El Paso area. Yeah, El Paso County, too, if you want to be specific with it on the ballot. So a lot to get into for this election. But, of course, the top of the ballot races often have quite a lot of focus with them. And so we have a new tour coming out of course, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, former El Paso congressman, and, of course, the Democratic nominee for the governor's mansion here in Texas, challenging Republican incumbent Governor Greg Abbott, as I talked about a little bit there. So, of course, he's launching, and according to our news partners there at KFOX 14, about what exactly is going to be going on with his new college tour. Now, it's no secret that the polling has not exactly been going in O'Rourke's favor. Somewhere between, I think, as little as 3 to 4 points and as many as about 10 to 11 points, depending on the point in time here. So there's obviously ground to gain. And I think there was the whole statewide corner-to-corner, so to speak, tour that is now largely wrapped up on the behalf of the O'Rourke campaign, but now going to be kicking off tomorrow, Tuesday, at UTEP, about 5:30. So technically during our show, so as much as I'd like to be there to see what's being talked about, I'm not going to be able to make it to that one, as we'll be on air at that point. Going to be happening at the El Paso Natural Gas Conference Center, 500 West University Avenue. And, of course, along with this being mentioned, that this is going to be the last day to register to vote. So I'll just take that time to mention that there for you all, to make sure that you are indeed registered, to make sure that you actually get able to do this. And RJ bringing up another important point with some of the local administrators having some issues, specifically that El Paso County issuing new mail-in ballots after a race was not printed. As RJ mentioned, that El Pasoans get 2 ballots. Texas agricultural race was missing on their first ballot. Will some mail in both, and will both be counted accidentally on purpose? Okay, not going to get into speculation on this point, but they are saying that they are being reissued. And again, according to specifically our news partners there at KFOX 14, that also saw posts coming both from the concerned people, or I think the local Democratic Party leadership, posting about this, that they have reached out to this. And so they will receive a corrected ballot. They will receive official election mail with a corrected ballot notification on the envelope, and instructions on returning the corrected ballot to the early voting clerk. And the only ballots marked on or before October 4th are affected. It has been noted there. Anyone with questions should contact the El Paso County Elections Department. So, again, seems a local election department issue with that. So if this is a race that's important to you, which it probably should be, given that all of these statewide races tend to have a lot of impact in a lot of different ways, even if it may not be obvious, you can contact the El Paso County Elections Department, 915-546-2154. Again, 915-546-2154. Very comment asking a kind of related question, saying, is it possible for local officials to remove the El Paso DA, or does it require state intervention to start the removal process? I'll admit to you that this has been a little bit of a convoluted one, but we do have currently processing through technically local courts, I guess would be the right way to put it. We do have the removal petition, the court-filed petition. So it's not the same one as what was being dealt with the whole El Paso County Hospital District UMC Certificates of Obligation bond, where that was something that you and I would potentially be able to sign if we chose to. I don't sign petitions. It's not something I can do in this kind of a position, whether I agree with it or not. Kind of immaterial to the fact there, but y'all certainly could if it was of importance to you. This is not that kind of petition. It's, the kind of in the sense of the word petition the court for redress of wrongs, those kind of things. So with that progressing, I think that some of the questions are still going on about whether or not where it'll be held, how it can move forward, those kind of things. So that's a lot of words to say that I'm not sure, and it's not exactly clear, I think, yet either. There are a lot of pending things with it, but last check with our news partners and others does seem that it was able to begin to progress in order to process a removal. I know that some of the quote-unquote relief being sought, again, we have previously had on the filer of that petition, local defense attorney Omar Carmona, asking for there to be both a removal from the office due to, well, issues with the office. I'm just going to put it that way. I don't have the exact phrasing in front of me and don't want to get it in trouble there. But actually, when it comes down to it, there was also seeking for there to be an injunction or an immediate removal from office of the person, of the district attorney, again, in this case, while this case proceeds. So I don't think it'll be over anytime soon, is what it comes down to. And, just some, I got to address some comments coming in about this, including See, there's a lot of what I do on this program is not necessarily questioning someone's motives for something. Like, sure, I understand that people may have concerns, and I try to address them directly as much as possible. I'm not necessarily here to solve all the problems, but well, at least talking about them is getting us on the road to it is the tact I usually take on it. But assuming anyone's saying, such as Eric McNabb, responding to Maria Coleman, saying that you don't actually care about the numbers or facts, those stats are just going to be used by, and again, rolling out that phrase, white supremacists. Again, don't know how much more I need to be on the record on this point of saying that white supremacy is bad as an incredible understatement, and anyone espousing that as a core ideal of their belief is not going to be very favored in my book. But they're posting all things as, well, it all comes down to that or others. Yeah, that just falls flat for me. Again, the way I tend to prefer to do things, and we do as much as possible in this program, is by getting into the actual details of the facts here. Like, if you feel that it is that way, let's discuss it and not just slap a label on it and say that we don't have to discuss it. Maria Coleman saying otherwise, O'Rourke is like gum on your shoe. I guess that's one way people have put it there. And other things about attacks on the district attorney office coming up, things like that. Yeah. Anyway, and Horizon City News Service also chiming in over on with radio emojis over on the social media, including some rants getting posted up and saying I redefined it. I mean, I'm not the one using the label, my dude. Anyway, so those are some of the election things going on. At least one other thing I wanted to mention, El Paso Inc. with a story out this week as of no big surprise, but it honestly relates to the election in a way I'll explain just a minute about how Fort Bliss is a pretty huge economic driver both for the state and for the region, most specifically, citing it to the Texas Comptroller's data that it was nearly generating $23 billion in economic activity last year, directly supporting 46,000, nearly 47,000 jobs, and about 74,000 indirect supported jobs as one of the largest bases in the nation. And also noting again from El Paso Inc. it's reporting there as being one of the biggest bases in the area and one of the biggest winners out of the base realignment and closure process from recent years. So the reason I bring this up in the election context specifically is because we have a bunch of congressional candidates on the ballot here in the region. In fact, driving out east for a meeting today, saw on I-10 billboard involving the Texas 23rd Congressional District. Wasn't actually by Tony Gonzalez. Let's get the name clear here. Tony Gonzalez, the veteran who is the current and continuing on nominee for the Texas 23rd Republican for the Texas 23rd Congressional District. I'm getting caught up on titles here. And so I actually saw a billboard for him on I-10, which is, I guess, a reflection of how that specific seat has been redefined within the redistricting process. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I hadn't seen it yet, so it was mildly a surprise to me. Keeping a Fort Bliss here is not something that we can just decide locally. As much as we might like to, as much as we should definitely have a say in it, it often comes down to the federal representation. And that's why one of the things that we talked about during this redistricting process about what will be some of the priorities for the elected officials that have some of the most impact on it, because congressional representation, I mean, there are seats on committees and their influence and ability to co-sign on to bills and other efforts are kind of key for that process. So that's why I mentioned this as showing that it's, I mean, I know there are some reports that have happened out there that talk about Fort Bliss, the base next to El Paso, Texas. It's within the city. Let's be honest here. It adjoins right up to it, and in some cases, the city has begun to surround it, except for the whole, Kastner Range and the largest contiguous military training area in the continental United States. Anyway, point is that they have a lot more influence than just about any average person I can think of, or any other level of elected official in town. Now, of course, showing support, the community involvement with Fort Bliss is kind of key, and that is something that is looked at. But ultimately, I mean, military concerns don't usually come down to thoughts, prayers, and feelings, so to speak. So to say that they will have more of an impact on that, I feel is pretty well supported. And so that's one of the questions we will be asking them, is specifically on Fort Bliss, your intentions, your purposes, what do you want to happen with this next term of office and going forward? So making that very clear there. And that'll take us through this next break. Now, coming out of this break, we will go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do during this point of the program. So if you want to get on the line. That number to do so here is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident reported Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at the Edgemere Boulevard on-ramp. Memorial Highway northbound at Montwood, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. An injury accident reported Rayner at Gateway West. Take Wyoming Avenue or Copia as your alternates. A crash with injuries eastbound Rojas just inside the loop at Joe Battle Boulevard. And an accident reported northbound Yarborough at Gateway West. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. As the leaves change, leave the hiring to Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
A lot of things have changed with the real estate market this year. Hi, it's Glenn. But with Brian Birds of EXP Realty, you don't have to worry about whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market because Brian's exclusive options and unique strategies make the market work for you, whatever's going on. Brian spends 25 times more on marketing than most agents make in a year. That means he's going to get your home sold faster and for more money because the potential buyers will see your home. And that is what creates demand, which gets you faster result and top dollar. In fact, he guarantees to sell it or he'll buy it himself. Another great option you need to sell quickly is Brian's instant cash offer. No showings, open houses, no hassle, just money in your pocket. Brian Birds is the agent that I would trust in El Paso. Besides that, well over 400 people have given Brian a 5-star Google review. You can read them by Googling Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S, or check out brianbirds.com.
Your engine may be trying to tell you something.
Hello? Yeah, under the hood. Mind opening up?
I need a favor. I've been driving you around for years, and I haven't asked for much. Some gas, a little oil, new tires once in a while. But look, I'm feeling a little run down and sluggish. I just don't have that same get up and go. And I'm afraid I might fail my emissions test. I warned you. Didn't you see my check engine light? So here's where you come in. Head to your favorite auto parts store and pick up a bottle of CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Psst, it's in a box. Just open up the bottle and glug, glug, glug right down the old gas tank. CRC, guaranteed to pass, uses real detergent additives to clean my whole system. I promise I'll feel so much better. And so will you, because Guaranteed to Pass actually does what it says. Or CRC will double your money back. Hey, have I ever steered you wrong? CRC, Guaranteed to Pass Emission System Cleaner. Available at your favorite auto parts store.
How did George Washington, the father of our country, go from a greedy land grabber to what King George referred to as the greatest man in the world? Well, we'll bring you this story on the next edition of Our American Stories. Be sure to catch it on iHeart Radio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. Of course, we got the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Also got those phone lines open now. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. If you want to get on the line that way, we have the phone lines open now, have them open through the rest of the show. A lot of comments coming in, including Ion Graham, RJ, Kathy Codry, a whole lot of comments coming in a lot of different ways here. Drop those likes and reacts. Simplest way to put it right now. Robert Haynes, James Holmes, Ion Graham, Amber Banda, and Ida Beza Gardner. And a lot of interesting points being made here, including James Radcliffe responding to something I believe Eric McNabb said earlier, saying it seems Eric is using revisionist history, eliminating the so-called indigenous people that agent history of human sacrifice, disease, and cannibalism. Okay, let me just say a part of the disease, that was more of a European introduction kind of thing, and particularly about the cannibalism. I know that has come up previous times we've discussed this, but is also tending to be overreported, and for one simple factor that, as much as there is many things that have been analyzed about the figure of Columbus, I mean, the reason this is coming up, I know, is because of Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, a lot of people calling it all things in the comments. Again, Casimir Pulaski Day for anyone from the Chicago area. Spent some years up there, so that one sticks in my mind, which again goes a little bit more to the actual purpose of Columbus Day in my mind, which was to kind of integrate Italian Americans into the American experience, because Columbus was Italian. So it's an argument to be made that that essential holiday has served its purpose. But of course, those that want to mark the history, kind of a thing I'm about as well. I understand there. And yeah, I'll take other comments later. But specifically to the idea of cannibalism, that's the thing, is that it was part of some of the many different, because I mean, there was a whole lot of laws being made or rules being made for the explorers by people who didn't live here, the colonial powers that were sending them here, Portugal, Spain, specifically in these kind of circumstances. And very specifically, if they were cannibals, they were allowed to be taken as slaves, otherwise taken over and dominated. Not that was really a compunction, but these were it was basically carte blanche that way. So within the historical record, there's tending to be an over-reporting of cannibalization. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but given the fact that all you have to do is claim that they were, and you can basically do whatever you want, yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. But anyway, let's go back to those phone calls now. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Richard on the road here with us right now. So, Richard, hope you still got signal and again, talk with us safely here.
Yeah, how you doing today? Good?
Yep, doing all right. How are you?
Good. Some very good comments initially about your indigenous people, because I am Native American, so props to you on that. But that's not what I call for, because I can go on about that forever.
Fair enough.
But I just wanted to, I talked to you a month or so ago. I wanted to revisit a news event that you mentioned here at the beginning of the show about the crash on the east side. But just in general, because of one like me who drives a lot, both day and night in town, these are just one of the quarter ills of a growing city. And, one of them is what we all see, the construction that I think is not poorly conceived, number one. But specifically on the incident that might be alleged drunk driving incident, another one.
Yes.
I see a lot. I told you, I see a lot of things overnight. And number one, I think in general, overall, in 2022, you have a lot of poor drivers, not courteous. And, I guess if you combine that with those that are drinking overnight, you've got a major problem. And I've seen a lot of these things. And this might be what I'm going to say next perceived as political, but I'm trying not to be political.
Okay.
I don't see why, for example, the folks that call in about the immigration problem, which we all clearly know, a lot of the argument is for safe and healthy and well-being of El Paso and the United States. I fully understand that and agree with that. But in the same vein, I'm just really disappointed that there's not more of an effort to curb the drinking and driving, not only here in Texas and El Paso in the nation, but I'm the one that also mentioned about the roadblocks.
Right.
To me, that's one of my criticisms about the laws here in the state of Texas. We remember we talked about that, about how that's a Texas thing. They will not do that.
Right.
I understand locally it's a strain on our local law enforcement, but hats off to them because they're stretched. I understand that they have a fully efficient, serviceable DUI task force. But I told you, I'm willing to bet that if you put some roadblocks around, especially on the holidays, that would curb a lot of that. It really would. But I don't know if we have the reasons to do so. But again, if this is just an observation, we put so much energy about the immigration and the safety and this, that, and the other thing. A lot of it is just, biased, undocumented, unfounded, warranted criticisms here on media. But this is a real problem, what I'm talking about. And it does include your health and safety and so forth. So those are the points I wanted to bring out, and I welcome the criticism on my remarks. I'm used to it. But to me, that's a real concern that we should all be on board about. That's all I want to say.
All right, well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, you have a good one there. Drive safe. I mean, I will say that, I've been pretty clear on record myself of saying that, if I ever find myself late at the office and we start getting to the midnight, 1 a.m. hour, particularly over the weekend, I'm just going to stay put, because some of the wilder driving I have seen is when I have been like, okay, finally done, let's go. And I unfortunately leave somewhere between 130 and 230. The roads out here, particularly in our neck of the woods, can be pretty wild. And I will agree that ever since basically there was a subset of the population that wasn't driving as much during the pandemic. And yeah, either people forgot how or realized that no one else was on the roads or got the sense that no one was paying attention. I mean, the amount of stuff I've seen like on the highways, like I've seen videos of it previously, but I actually saw it in person the other day of someone passing someone on I-10 over the shoulder. Like they zipped around them onto the hard shoulder on the side of the road in between the guardrail, which is reckless at best and just dumb overall. And that's the kind of thing that I feel like I'm seeing more often. I don't have any concrete data I can point to. This is anecdotal at best, but still concerning. Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you there. And the idea of there being more on the DWI, I know that they do checkpoints in a way. They can't do specifically DWI checkpoints, but they will say that they're going to be out on the roads and watching for erratic driving. And hell, I've run into checkpoints in my own right, not for drunk driving, but as documentation and kind of things. And so I'm sure there's a way it can be done, whether or not that there isn't, the right amount of resources for it. I don't know. But issue we definitely need to keep an eye on. So thank you for the point of the call. Again, got to take that break in the top of the hour news. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments, a lot of commentary, a lot more coming in, including response to me and just more things. And we'll delve into what we can. Again, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident on Gateway West at North Piedras exit is blocking the two right lanes. Stay to the left and expect some brief delays. An injury accident, Rayner at Gateway West. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, Memorial Highway northbound at Bob Hope Drive exit. And an injury accident, Alameda eastbound at Delta Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. John Mellencamp returns to the road, and iHeartRadio is getting you there. We'll fly you and a guest to the tour date of your choice and set you up with VIP tickets to the show. Plus, slap a backstage pass on your jean jacket so you can meet John. And you'll walk away with a sheet of handwritten lyrics to one of his legendary tunes. Prize provided by AEG. Enter for your chance to win now at iHeartRadio.com/John. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Ukrainian President Zelensky says he needs the U.S. and G7 support for Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. Lisa Taylor has more.
He wrote in a tweet that he and President Biden had a productive conversation about air defense being the smaller country's #1 priority. Zelensky said the Ukraine needs U.S. leadership along with G7's tough stance to support the United Nations resolution.
A top Federal Reserve official says the central bank is intently focused on controlling inflation. Speaking to CNBC, Chicago Fed President Charles Evans described it as job one. The Fed has been raising interest rates throughout the year in a bid to tame soaring prices. The majority of almost 12,000 unionized railroad employees voted to reject a labor agreement backed by President Biden. That means there will be a status quo period during which strikes cannot happen while the union continues negotiating with freight railroads. 4 unions have approved the deal. 7 more will vote over the coming weeks. The state of Florida is facing another lawsuit in connection to 2 migrant flights last month. The State Center for Government Accountability is suing the administration of Governor Ron DeSantis, claiming his office didn't comply with requests to release specific records about the flights from Texas to Massachusetts. Embattled Los Angeles City Council member Nuri Martinez is resigning from her role as council president after she was caught on video making racist remarks about council member Mike Bonin's adopted black son. Fellow council member Marquise Harris Dawson thinks Martinez and others should resign.
These things take a while. This conversation was a year ago. They had no idea they were being taped.
Democratic U.S. Senator Alex Padilla wants Nuri Martinez, Kevin De Leon, and Gil Cedillo to step down. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A documentary production company wants access to video, audio, and photographic records connected with the helicopter crash that killed NBA legend Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others.
Through the California Public Records Act, Real World Media is taking legal action against Los Angeles County and Sheriff Alex Villanueva. The company says it was wrongfully denied access to the information it requested. The company has also clarified that it does not want post-accident images of the 9 people who died in the January 2020 crash. I'm Phil Hewlett.
A new report says about a third of Americans are struggling to pay their bills as rising prices eat away at pocketbooks. Lending Tree says 32% of adults haven't paid a bill on time in the last 6 months. Those surveyed said they fell behind on a variety of payments, including their credit card bill. Lending Tree's chief credit analyst noted sacrifices have had to be made during this time of high inflation. There's a new PSA about vaccines running on TV and radio. Lisa G has more.
The state of New York is launching a campaign urging residents to get the flu and the updated COVID-19 booster shots.
We need to prepare for both flu and COVID this fall and winter.
Officials say the ads will run in both English and Spanish. New York State Health Commissioner Dr. Mary Bassett is urging all New Yorkers to protect themselves and their family and friends by getting a flu vaccine as soon as possible. In addition, the COVID-19 booster can also be administered at the same time as the flu shot.
The Carolina Panthers are parting ways with head coach Matt Rule. He was in his 3rd season with the Panthers and leaves with a record of 11-27. Secondary coach Steve Wilkes will take over as interim head coach. Wilkes served as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals for 1 season. Rule climbed the ladder as a college coach, finding success at Temple and Baylor. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Your quality of life and your retirement are under attack because the Fed and the administration has chosen to fight the wrong war. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Tired of the news about how everything is costing more?
Everything is stubbornly high.
Us too. That's why we made the iHeartRadio app absolutely free. When you download the free iHeartRadio app, you have radio stations you love at your fingertips whenever you want, wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist, playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
I get it. Your desk has been there for you, holding up your computer, your unused stapler, and that plant you forgot to water. But maybe it's time to leave your desk and spend your lunch break volunteering with Meals on Wheels.
Doing Meals on Wheels for me is the joy that I look for at the end of my week. I'll come to the door with one meal and I'll walk away with a full heart.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. That's americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know.
Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Don't need to memorize all of those, but whatever works best for you so you can see the show, the comments that we pop up coming from it, and make your own. As well as that phone line open, full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in a little bit later, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Keep it clean there. And a lot of comments going on the social media. We got Eric Von Holstein-Rathlow, Eric McNabb, Louis Pinato, RJ, Kathy Codry, James Radcliffe, I didn't already say that. Louis Pinato. What else we got here? Sean Gardner. And, well, just simplest way to put it, those likes and reacts coming in. We do have Ida Beza Gardner, Amber Banda, Ion Grimm, James Holmes, Robert Haynes, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Louis Pinato. Appreciate that, as it helps us with those things. And, yeah, we got the calls going on. And a lot more to get to there, including RJ bringing up a point, and Kathy Codry saying crazy drivers and a lot of El Paso, and RJ saying specifically that the part of Mesa I'm on, saying your part of Mesa, because yes, that's where we are, is a cautionary tale after midnight, mentioning a specific bar that I'm not going to blow any smoke unnecessarily yet, but saying that comes to mind for me. I trained in Juarez for years. I'm older, not feeling invincible, and it's home for me by 9 p.m. Sometimes kind of wish I could be out of here. It's not even that I'm at the bars and like, man, all these other people at the bars are the a-holes. No, it's that I'm here at work, and defensive driving has been a very useful skill, I'll say that way. And Kathy Codry saying on that as well. 2 accidents in 5 days at the entrance of her development and the highway. Yeah, that sounds problematic at best. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make a couple of comments here regarding the billions of dollars that are wasted every day by this administration.
Mm-hmm.
And in the El Paso Inc. this weekend, there was an article where it stated that we are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine so that Ukraine can fight for its people, its borders, its culture, its tongue, and its language. So they're simply fighting for their sovereignty. Here in the United States, Biden spends billions of dollars to erase our borders so that 149 different cultures, tongues, language, and criminals can come into our country. And let's not forget the open border policy he has enabled the cartel to amass $13 billion in fiscal year 22, and it's not over yet, as opposed to $500 million in 2018. So that's a big difference, and it just shows what open borders, no sovereignty can do to a country. But we haven't talked about what this is causing our schools. This past weekend, they interviewed a New York City school official, and she indicated that over 1,000 students had been enrolled in their schools. And she says they don't speak English. Some have never attended school. And this was a real eye-opener. She said that they are using our children as interpreters for these young children. She said it's all about governor blames governor blames the president, and nobody is learning. Somebody has to fix this. And I'm sure this isn't just exclusive to New York City. I'm sure there are other school districts out there who are doing the same thing that New York City, and it's all about survival. So not only is the president destroying our sovereignty, but he's destroying our educational system as well. You know, his policies are going to adversely impact the future of these children. And Representative Escobar must believe, in my opinion, that the out of sight, out of mind policy works, because she's invisible. In my opinion, she works against the good of our community, our country, and her continued support of these inhumane policies is outrageous, and we need to vote her out. And last week, Representative Cuellar from the Rio Grande Valley was on national TV.
Mm-hmm.
And he stated that he was specifically told by Mayorkas that the far left groups in the White House are now running border policy. These organizations, as I reported in the past, believe in unimpeded illegal immigration, just an unending flow of illegal immigrants into our country. He also stated that Biden does not want to hear anything about border issues unless it's what he hears from these far left groups within the White House. Bottom line is we need a representative who's going to fight for our community. She's going to fight for enforcement of our laws. She's going to honor the oath she takes upon being sworn in. And she's going to fight to protect our children and their education and fight to secure our borders. We need to vote for Irene Armendariz-Jackson. Everybody talks about we need to make a difference. El Paso does need to make a difference. And we need to make a difference and walk the talk. At least I'm going to. And go vote and take a friend and vote Escobar out and Jackson in. It's policies that I'm sure if El Paso stops to think, if they take the word Democrat and Republican out when they go in to vote and they vote strictly on policy, they'll see that they are believers in our sovereignty, believers in legal immigration, because we all want immigration, but we want legal immigration. We want to know who's in our country. We want to know that they're coming here because they want to assimilate into the country, not be in the shadows forever. They want to actually grow and economically go up the ladder. There's so many things that they have in common with us. Their faith, I'm sure. We all have faith, and we all believe in hard work. A helping hand and not a handout. So if we go to the polls and we forget party and vote on policy, higher paychecks, lower grocery bills, lower gas bills, you're going to vote Republican. And I'm talking about policies. Compare the policies and see which party works for you, works for your family, and just overall works for our community. And then you're going to take the party out of it, and you're going to see who supports what I just talked about, moving us economically, securing our border, and protecting us. There's just no way you can cast a ballot for a Democrat unless you just vote for a party. And that's what we do wrong. We go in and vote for a party. And I stop and I think, what would I do if I was a Democrat? How would I feel at this point? If all my life I voted Democrat, how much strength would it take for me to go in and change how I vote? And I guess that you'd have to put your family first and cast your ballot. And I think you would vote for the conservatives. That's my opinion. And secondly, I was looking at the website here on El Paso regarding the statistics. And it doesn't make sense. Because if you see the 7-day rolling average is 462, yet it says 6,000 plus community releases. So those two brackets to me don't make sense, especially when it says daily from CBP is approximately 10,900 migrants.
I think that one that one's total. I think that one you're referring to the 10,000 that's total received so far.
Yeah, but look at how it drops from 4,600 all the way down to 462 releases. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm trying to get my history back up here so I can go in there and find that again. But I'm going to look at it closer because those numbers aren't making any sense to me. And it just reminds me of when we had COVID. Remember they put all those figures in?
Exactly.
It turns out that 0.98, they put it in as 98%, and it was like a 0.98, not even 1%. So these are things that we need to look at closely to understand and not just take everything for granted. Oh, they've got the brightest and the best inputting stuff, because we all make mistakes. So anyway, I would encourage everybody to study that website closely. If you have any questions, dial the city, because I have. And just last, Andrew, I was out of town for a while, and before I left, I called the city. And I asked them if they had, in fact, vaccinated all these illegal immigrants, if they had, in fact, taken care of all those that were loitering in the airport, because I wanted to feel safe. I was traveling by myself. And they actually wanted to make me feel like I shouldn't be asking these questions. And I think as a taxpayer, I have a right to ask the questions. So I asked the questions. Then I called the airport. Same thing there. I asked, have you taken care of the loitering? I'm flying and I want to be safe. And she indicated that they couldn't, because it was a public space, they couldn't do anything with all the people that were there loitering. And I said, well, I want to be safe. I don't want to be like the other lady that calls it. No, she doesn't call in. She comments regularly when she was out of town and she was upset. So I called them too. I called the airport, the administration. And in both places, it's like, I shouldn't be asking questions. And I'm thinking, yes, I should be asking questions. Our tax dollars pay for what you're doing. So it's unfortunate that they have that attitude. The two can work together. All they have to do is answer our questions. And the reason I called and asked about the COVID is because I knew, and I had read a report, that tuberculosis was being misdiagnosed for COVID. And to me, that's critical. So we don't call on frivolous questions. We call because we're concerned about our families, our grandchildren, our children, and our community. I just wanted to, let everybody know that when you're going out of town, you call the city, you call the airport, and you make sure that you feel comfortable and safe when you're traveling. So.
All right. Well, fair enough. And yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on particularly that, the dashboard, the migrant crisis dashboard that the city has been put out. Again, there's a lot of data there. And I know that we've had conversations about how data has been measured previously in certain different circumstances. So, of course, keep our eye on that here. Well, glad you had safe travels. Glad you made it back safe. And thanks for the point in the call.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
You too there as well. Let's squeeze in one more call before we hit that next break. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Oh, geez. Again, labels are not a great way to have discourse. Just going to reiterate that point here. But let's get back to the phone lines here. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, real fast. Thank you, Andrew. I have to agree with Barbara, and I did see that interview with Henry Cuellar. And yes, these left-wing pro-immigration groups are the ones that is driving the policy in the Homeland Security.
I would say that to a large, it's being driven by the administration. We know that much. That's the fact that there hasn't been real policy coming out of it has been concerning. The closest thing we got was the whole pillars speech that the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, made some months ago. And you would think that something about changing the way that we were handling border situations would come out top level. And I guess that was top-ish, but like they would come out of the White House specifically. So it seems like they've basically made, basically the guinea pig for these policies and see if it'll work. And my kind of assumption is that if it doesn't, and we see more incidents like what we've been seeing here with overwhelming of local resources to a large extent, that it's pretty much going to fall around his neck.
Well, that's exactly what you're going to see, an overstrain of resources. And to top it all, currently you have Chris Magnus, head of CBP. This is an individual with absolutely no federal law enforcement experience, and he is a big proponent of and advocate of sanctuary cities and states.
Okay.
Yes. And one last thing, by the way, under Greg Abbott, besides Operation Lone Star, there's something that many people don't know, but he, as part of his policies, Texas has a constitutional amendment to prohibit a state income tax. It's already in the Constitution.
Yep. I honestly, I think that's part of some of the political ads that have been airing involving Greg Abbott's campaign.
Actually, yeah, that is true. That just came out recently.
That we'll, of course, be seeing a lot of talking points going to discuss here. We'll keep bringing them up because, yeah, the elections are where they're looming ever closer. Again, just under a month away now, so we'll be keeping our focus on that.
Granted. Yes, and by the way, to a few of you listeners out there, this is not white supremacist talk.
Fair enough here. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
All right, we got to take that next break. Now, coming out of this break, getting to more of the calls on the line, more of the comments, more of everything that we do, but got to pay some bills. So back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. That number again, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An update on that crash Gateway West at Piedra Street. Now it's down to one right lane that's blocked. Stay to the left. Joe Battle northbound at Edgemere, an injury accident there. And police are still working an injury accident Rayner Street at Gateway West. Take Wyoming Avenue or Copia to get around the slowing. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Tune in this week for the conclusion of Red Pilled America's 10-part series on Richard Nixon. You won't want to miss it. The similarities between past and present are astonishing. Listen to Red Pilled America on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, "Best product I've ever used," and "Amazing, I love my Navage." Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
This view was worth a hike.
Right? And it's a good way to stay on top of my health.
Yes, I'm Cologuard, a prescription colon cancer screening option for people 45 plus at average risk. Have you screened for colon cancer?
Not yet.
Don't wait. It's more treatable when caught in early stages.
Tell me more.
Cologuard is non-invasive and it's used at home. It detects altered DNA in your stool to find 92% of colon cancers.
92%?
Yep, even those in early stages.
This was seen in a clinical study with patients 50 and older. Any positive result should be followed by a diagnostic colonoscopy. False positive and negative results may occur. Cologuard is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Do not use if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colon cancer.
Most insured patients pay $0. Ask your provider or an online prescriber if Cologuard is right for you, or visit Cologuard.com.
I'm in.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in here in a variety of ways and different points coming up. And yeah, including a lot about travel here, including Austin Redfern, RJ, Kathy Codry, Maria Coleman, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, James McNabb, James Radcliffe, Louis Pinato. Not quite all the comments showing up as they should be. Probably more of a program on this end problem. But again, just to be clear, in case I think it was Steve Ivey who got maybe the wrong message last week. Steve, if you're out there, you're not banned or anything, but well, if you don't want to listen anymore, that's your choice. But if you want to be involved in discussion about things involving El Paso and the deep discussion that we need to have about the issues affecting us right here at home, then more than welcome to be a part of it, whoever you are. So At least some more of those comments, including Maria Coleman chiming in saying that that she's the person who was affected, was upset by our airport, and was infected with COVID, infected quite a few people. Specifically citing the situation at the airport that the previous caller was describing here, and saying if they had been aware of the situation prior, would have not have traveled. So, I mean, there's a lot of discussion there. And Maria Coleman going on to further say, I have friends who were there a couple of weeks ago, and they have tested positive and are ill again. So, I mean, knowing the reality situation, how they're being dealt with is important, which again, I'm in favor of data, but useful data is another question entirely sometimes. So whether or not we can actually parse through that is important in its own right. So let's go ahead and get back into the phone calls here. And the number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, for KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. You're back on the radio. I'm so excited. Now, let me tell you something. All over the weekend, I'm thinking about all the horrible things that you got on the news, with the exception of the fact down here in beautiful downtown Mesilla, we had over the weekend the Las Cruces Conference of Mariachis. I can't get, they are just so beautiful. These women, mezzo, soprano, the guys, tenor, it just lifts your heart like nobody's business. Now, having said that, let me just say this. I heard that nut job, that muggery thuggery Green, going on, she wants to, what do you call it, impeach Biden, impeach the guy, the Attorney General,
Merrick Garland.
And yeah, that's him. And then what's her face, Pelosi. Now, what kind of nut job is this? What kind of stupidity is this? Now, I asked you this once before, Andrew, and I just don't understand this. Why your station, KTSM, can't cut loose $50,000 for you and an audio-visual team, plus that nice girl, that girl you get on every once in a while, that call screener. You go over there to the 14th Congressional District of Northwest Georgia, and then you go out there and then record all these people that come back and then explain to the United States of America, this is the reason why we got problems the way we got. That's what I want to say for my opening comment.
Well, I appreciate the thought, and I want us to do more in-depth coverage. We, of course, have been known to do some out-of-town coverage, particularly at CPAC last year. Weren't able to get the logistics together for it this year. Just didn't work out with our programming schedule. But I'm just saying I felt the whoosh of air of the thunderclap from the pucker factor from our management, even if they weren't listening directly to the price factor you put on that. I'm just going to say. So, I mean, yeah, making it so we could do out-of-town coverage is important. I'm honestly not sure we'd go that far afield, because as much as we do, I mean, Fridays is always, there's a Friday in every week, so to speak, and we, of course, delve into those issues. But if we're going to go out of town to cover other issues, it would probably be something a little bit more directly involving the situations here in town. So I can imagine New Mexico, Texas. New Mexico might be a bit of a stretch, but possible, because there are issues that happen in the large part of the state that affect us here. But not much further afield that I don't really see that being on the docket or possible. And just as a further to bring it home point, at the price point you're suggesting there, let's just say shoestrings or no strings tend to be the way it's talked about in media these days.
All right. Maybe the 14th Congressional, it's just too off the mark. But listen, I'm serious as a heart attack, Andrew, and all your 250,000 listeners out there. Listen, the people that are in the 14th Congressional District, the same kind of whack job, nut jobs that you do have in Texas. Go to that place where you got that guy, Louie Gobermart, right? Then take $50,000 and go over there. It's the same thing, for crying out loud. I mean, show the people what kind of stupidity that we have for the voters of the United States of America. How the heck in the world do you expect the country to go forward when you've got poorly educated morons? That's my point.
I think you're talking about a Louis Gohmert there, if I'm not mistaken, who is from the Texas 1st Congressional District. So I guess that would be closer to home if that's the point you're wanting to make here. But so if you've got any travel plans coming up where we're able to bring you coverage like that, we'll make it very clear when we're doing it on air.
All right, Andrew. I love you. I love your program. It's the best program ever. Keep yourself well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, you too. Thanks for the point of the call. You have a good one there.
All right.
All right, and tell you what, I think we're going to go ahead and slip into that next break right now. One comment I wanted to make here, just make it clear, since we're talking about elections, we popped up a couple of those comments here, including one, let me see it here, Maria Coleman as well, saying, I've noticed that many candidate handouts, brochures, or signs either, I think, do not list the parties. What meant to be said there, do not list the party, or the lettering is so small, residents don't notice, voters may not realize when they cast their vote. I'm not saying that, I mean, I don't have an exhaustive list and a review of all of the candidate signs in front of me, as much as I, whenever I see a candidate sign, something posted, that I'm probably craning my neck to take a look at it. I mean, I've often taken pictures of them to compare. Yeah, I pay attention to them much as other people may pay attention to other distracting things on the line. That's what distracts me. No, I haven't gotten any crashes from it, knock on wood. Still drive safe as much as their craziness on the road. But just as a finer point to be made, because this often gets lost, that's a number. I mean, there are 17 candidates on local ballots for the city of El Paso coming up this election cycle that there is no party affiliation there. Now, whether or not they're supported by one is a different question, but there are technically nonpartisan races on this ballot. So just keep that in mind. And that's why talking about the issues, talking about the policies, talking about what people actually plan to do once elected, what we'll get into and keep doing with those candidates and more. So not trying to pick on you, just as a good point to reiterate. And a lot more we'll get into here. So stay tuned. We got to take that next break. But coming out of this break, more on the phone line, full up again at the moment. But the number to squeeze in if you want to is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back again after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A total of 3 people died in a head-on crash in Far East El Paso today. The crash happened at about midnight in the 1600 block of North Ascension Street. According to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, a Ford F-150 and a Nissan Sentra collided. 3 people in the Nissan were killed. Their ages ranged from 18 to 20. There was 1 person in the Ford. They were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. That crash remains under investigation. The Democratic candidate for governor of Texas will be back in his hometown of El Paso this week as part of a college-focused tour. Beto O'Rourke will host a town hall at UTEP at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. It'll take place at the El Paso Natural Gas Conference Center. The deadline to register to vote for the November election is October 11th. Recent polls show that O'Rourke is trailing behind Republican incumbent Governor Greg Abbott, who is seeking his 3rd term. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
An update on that crash Gateway West at Piedra Street. Now it's down to 1 right lane that's blocked. Stay to the left. Joe Battle northbound at Edgemere, an injury accident there. And police are still working an injury accident Rayner Street at Gateway West. Take Wyoming Avenue or Copia to get around the slowing. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warm Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for another rainy day here in the borderland. We are looking at a 40% chance for rain here in El Paso, 70% chance in Las Cruces. We're also looking at a high of about 73 degrees in El Paso, 71 in Las Cruces. We are going to continue to be seeing these cooler temperatures sticking around throughout the weekend, as well as that rain. Of course, we are going to be keeping a track on that. We are expecting to see that rain returning in the afternoon hours.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Your quality of life and your retirement are under attack because the Fed and the administration has chosen to fight the wrong war. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses create bold signs to make big impressions. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 12/31. Visit staples.com/this is your sign for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people chiming in on many of those. Juance, Kathy Codry, RJ, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, Robbie Flores, James Ratcliffe, Louis Pinato, Austin Redfern. Dropping those likes and reacts. Again, it's just one of the easiest ways to get through the list here. Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, Robert Haynes, James Holmes, Ian Graham, Ambrabanda, Adebeza Gardner, and Louis Pinato. Again, if you like what we're doing or prefer this having the ability to talk about things, whether you like what we're talking about or not, kind of two separate issues, drop the like, drop the react, let us know what you think. Tell a friend, share it, post it, whatever works for you, whatever platform you're on. And again, those phone lines, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Again, up and full at the moment, but we'll be delving through them as we do through the rest of the hour. So let's get right back into it. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I want to get back to the subject of driving that you mentioned, or someone mentioned earlier in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with the fact that driving is not a right, it's a privilege. And as long as we're driving on the public streets, we have to recognize that. And such things as checkpoints, I don't know if we have those anymore in El Paso. Do we? Do you know?
So, and it was actually another caller, I forget who mentioned that there is, specific court citing. So what it is, the situation in Texas that essentially the courts decided that specific DWI or DUI, whatever the legal term at the point was, checkpoints are not allowable under the Texas Constitution. So those are not. Now, there are still checkpoints of a kind, mostly of a documentation. The two that I've run into and that I can recall anyway, one was out in the county and one was kind of like off Belvedere, if I want to remember correctly. And they were about, do you have your driver's license, insurance, those kind of things. So I think that's the closest they can get, but it's not have you been drinking tonight, move along. They are asking everyone there for their documentation. So essentially, logistically speaking, I think it could technically serve the purpose as like trying to stop those with DWI, but given the fact that you can't really do that on like main roads because it would back up traffic for miles, I'm not sure it could actually be feasibly used that way.
Right. The officer, as you pointed out, can tell usually if a person has been drinking by just smelling their breath as they take out their documents.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not specifically set up to check for drunks, but if it happens, then step out of your car and we'll frisk you and all this. As far as the checkpoints themselves are concerned, I have no problem with them, because the way I look at it is, if you're doing the right thing, and there are a lot of people who are not, who are drinking, who don't have their documents and everything, then why should you have your documents and go through all the expense and hassle of getting them when other people are going to be let go scot-free because checkpoints would be illegal or not the thing to do? it goes back to the points that I made in the beginning. And everyone knows this, but including myself, but we all don't practice it or realize it enough. You don't have a right to drive. You have a privilege driving on our streets, public streets. So we got to remember that. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, that's an important point to be made. And I will say this. I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that there is therefore no enforcement, that, well, we can't do checkpoints, therefore do whatever you guys want. Just don't kill each other, or try not to anyway. That is not the reasoning.
Right.
A lot of what they talk about then is that having more patrols out. So they are still particularly, I mean, I've noticed it. I know, I'm sure other people have, around like getting onto long holiday weekends or, end of years, those celebration times, that there will tend to be a lot more uniformed officers out there, whether it be local police. I mean, I even think I've seen like sheriff's deputies as well, constables occasionally, and then of course DPS, state troopers, do seem to have, they pick their moments, so to speak. So that is still happening. So anyone thinking I'm just going to go out and no one's going to challenge me, there's a phrase I want to use, but mess around and find out is the best way I can say it online. But it's still happening. But I will say that there were more tools to do it. Maybe it would be so much the better.
The TSA at the airport is also an inconvenience for most people, because most people are pretty honest. They're not going to be packing weapons in their suitcases, etc. But we all go through that, some more patiently than the others. And we go through that, then why should we have a problem with checkpoints on our roads, is what I'm saying.
Well, whether that ends up being something addressed during this upcoming legislative session, I don't know if that's on the list here. I mean, there's hundreds of representatives that are all going to be submitting their own bills, so I'm not going to be able to rule it out entirely. I haven't heard of anything coming up yet, but of course we'll keep our eye on it as we get closer to the end of the year and the start of the legislative session next year.
Okay, I appreciate it, Andrew. Thank you. Have a good day.
So thanks a lot for the point of the call. You have a good one there, too. All right, let's get to some more calls on the line here, squeezing in what we can. James Ratcliffe making a finer point here, I will say, saying traveling is not restricted and we are free to travel in any form. Let me just say this, that yes, and I've come across that argument as well about the right to travel, and including some of the interviews with people who, don't have documentation, purposefully kind of as necessarily a protest, but a lack of restriction or recognition of the the jurisdiction, those kind of things here. And there's one thing to be, absolutely right. Another thing to be dealing with reality well. And I have my license and do that. I don't find it to be an onerous burden, but rather probably one that there should be more owner on. That's not the right way that phrase works, I know. But still, I think the restrictions and requirements should be, I was kind of a little bit shocked when I got my first driver's license, I'll be honest with you. Yes, there was a driving test and a little bit of education, some answering of questions, but it's kind of like, okay, good luck, have fun. And it wasn't like necessarily like training. So I know there are other states that actually have like to graduate high school, you have to actually go through a driver's ed course, and I don't know if that would actually be feasible here in Texas, but might be more in favor of it than not here. But getting back to those calls now, we do have Eric on the east side with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yes, this is Eric from the east side. I'm the one who comments a lot about white supremacy, and I wanted to, mention three things if I have enough time. That caller Barbara, that woman, she's a militant white supremacist. The position where she's coming from, she thinks the lack of white immigration is going to lead to a race war and a civil war. Those are the book links that she shares on your Facebook page, like just full-blown obscure white supremacist propaganda. Now, that's one form of white supremacy. Now, I want to get more into the more the more average type, like the type promoted by everyday Republicans and conservatives. Like, white supremacy doesn't necessarily mean you think white people are better than other races. It takes many other forms, like opposing efforts to decrease racism against people of color. That may seem unrelated, but when you reduce the racism people of color experience, what people call the white privilege, which is the better treatment of white people over people of color, if you're increasing that gulf in treatment by opposing efforts to reduce racism, you're actively promoting the supremacy of white people over people of color. Now, if you follow right-wing media and listen to what right-wing media, they're always going on and on and on about how efforts to reduce racism against people of color is some anti-white plot, some communist plot, like these really wild narratives. Like right now in our in American history, culturally, there's a large effort to reduce racism against Black people, Mexicans, Hispanics, and conservatives are militantly against it. They're ready to storm the Capitol again over the Little Mermaid being made Black. And that's the product of these talking points.
Okay, connecting January 6th to the Little Mermaid. I mean, I'll entertain this discussion to a point here, but let me just say, it's very interesting that you bring up communism there, because that is a refrain that I kind of get tired in my own right when it comes to this discussion, that because if everything is communism, nothing is communism. And kind of the same way here, if everything is white supremacy, then nothing is white supremacy. I mean, it's not even just that there aren't those out there that absolutely objectively believe that because of their color of their skin, and not even necessarily any of their personal achievements, they are superior to everyone who doesn't look like them around them. And I'm also going to draw a fine, distinctive line between wanting to, say, create an ethno-state versus the concern about the balkanization of this country. I mean, there is historical backing for there being a lack of or a falling apart of cohesion within any kind of body of polity. And I'm not even talking about that along racial or ethnic lines, but civilizations and organizations that have had otherwise cohesion. When these things start rising up in prominence, the amount of identity politics, another way to put it, can then damage and make it so that it does fall apart here. So I often find the discussion of balkanization and the concern that comes along with it as frankly opposing an ethno-state, because there's no one that's like, yeah, balkanization, let's get that going. No, you people who generally talk about this are like, and why that would be a bad thing is at least the discussion I have. And I've looked at those book links you're talking about there as well, and I'm not sure if I'm looking, frankly, at the same book link you're talking about, because one, you keep using a phrase that I'm not going to repeat here, but you keep posting in the comments about a heinous idea, basically around and about the kind of like the 14 words kind of thing and 1488 phrases, which, just to make that perfectly clear, yes, I study them and I'm entirely opposed to them. I want to know what's being talked about here. Again, I spend a lot of time on the internet and focusing on these issues here, and discussing about them and making them clear and apparent is important. And sure, not just everyone saying that everyone that doesn't look like me needs to die doesn't mean there can't be other racist things. Redlining is other aspects. I mean, institutionalized systems definitely exist. I have concern. I'm very interested in seeing those kind of things dismantled. But this is the real issue I guess I take with this, is that by just simply putting up the idea of saying, well, we should have less racism. Sure, great. That is a very good goal in my mind. But then how you're going to go about it is the devil's in the details, as it always is. So to just say a goal and therefore the ends justify the means, that's when we start getting to that level of reasoning, it starts getting more complicated in terms of both, recent history, as you're talking about, or anywhere in the historical record, just saying that, well, we need to do this no matter what. And so screw it. You start getting into like great leap forward kind of, reasoning here where, well, we need to be doing more. So let's just do it. Damn the cost. We'll figure it out later here. So that's part of the issue that I have with this.
Okay, well, I just wanted to point out the more benign version of white supremacy that usually everyday conservatives partake in, as they blame brown immigrants for all of these apocalyptic conspiracy theories, the same ones that brought Patrick Crucius to our city to kill brown people with the explicit purpose of protecting the size of the white population in the city. And this is Greg Abbott, Fox News, almost everyone on conservative talk radio promoting these white supremacist narratives, demonizing not just the immigrants and asylum seekers, but the Black Lives Matter protesters who are concerned about legitimate racism that they're experiencing as a whole.
And to say that those are, of course, that have legitimate concerns about racism, and then not also addressing the fact that there were riots that came out of these things. I mean, as much as there's been talk about January 6th versus these things, to say that one that basically says that part of it doesn't matter. Yes, I'm concerned both about, because unfortunately the comparisons keep being made about January 6th and also, making sure that election laws are being followed, but also the fact of, dealing with the issues of underlying racism and those things, and also damage caused by people not acting towards those goals coming out of those otherwise. I mean, I know the phrase, it's become a joke practically, mostly peaceful, because to those who have had their lives and property destroyed, it doesn't work out that way. I mean, the point is lost. And as much as, sure, the ride is the language of the unheard, the damage levels, it can definitely reach a point where it overwhelms whatever social point was meant to be coming at here. So, again, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. We got to take at least one more call before we get to the end of the program here. We do have a Stephen on the east side with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I know a lot of people like Derek, and then if they open up their sock drawer in the morning, they're going to find racism and white supremacy in their own sock drawer because they see it everywhere. But the reason why I called is because, yes, there is white supremacy, and yes, there has been a history of racism in our country, and that is not just specific to the white race. It's anybody who's in a group, and there are tribal groups throughout history. There is a fear and a resentment of what they call the other. So people who are different than yourself, there's naturally that, and that happens all the time. Of all the countries in the world, the United States of America is the least racist country of all other countries, and we are the most diverse, and we should celebrate that. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to Columbus Day, I remember growing up, it was like, oh, what do you do on Columbus Day? You learn about history. You learn about Columbus. And even in the Midwest, we learned about Columbus, and he wasn't a perfect guy. Just like you may find out later on in life that Martin Luther King may have cheated on his wife. And does that mean that you don't celebrate the strides that he made with the civil rights movement? I mean, he wasn't perfect. And some people have this presentism, they call it. And presentism is like, if I were the person I am today, translate me back in time to the 1800s or whatever, how would I act? Well, you would act a lot different than the people who grew up in that time period and were raised with those values at that time. So they call it presentism because it's just a not realistic way to understand human history and how people grew up in those time periods and how they would act. As if you were translated back in time, you would be the one who would be fighting in the Underground Railroad and risking your life, risking being lynched. A lot of white people were lynched trying to help the slaves. And you would be one of the good ones, right? So people think that they would be one of the good ones, but most people are cowards. They wouldn't really do that. Just an example of kind of one of the issues, like Barbara brought it up, the schools. A lot of the immigrants who come over, they bring their kids. We feel bad for them and we want to help them. But it is very, very disruptive because a lot of them aren't reading at grade level. They don't speak English. And that's very disruptive to the classroom. And it's something that has to be dealt with. It's not easy.
No.
And coming from an education background myself, if you have a lot of people who have different, in your classroom, you have people who are way behind and people who are way ahead, it's hard to cater in the same classroom to all those people. That's why you have a lot of these advanced placements. Some kids are way better at math.
Oh, sure.
You set them apart and you say, oh, I'm going to move you up and separate them, have them do different classes because they like math and they're good at math. And so that's how you deal with these big disparities between those kids. And that's how you deal with the education. So Barbara's not racist for bringing that up. That's a real problem in the classroom. It needs to be talked about, and bringing it up and talking about it isn't white supremacy. It's just a practical issue that needs to be discussed. Like I said, people like Eric, they see racism everywhere. They don't understand the practical implications. He's probably, never had a real job, never run anything, never had to deal with these issues. He's just a keyboard warrior troll. And that's my comment. Thanks.
Well, sure thing. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one there. And we got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, we'll have just enough time to tell you got coming up for you on the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier crash Gateway West before Piedra Street exit. All lanes are back open there. That accident's cleared. Gateway West at Hawkins, an injury accident reported. The right lane is blocked due to an accident South Desert Boulevard at Vinton. And a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder on the 54 Gateway North at Sun Valley Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
How did George Washington, the father of our country, go from a greedy land grabber to what King George referred to as the greatest man in the world? Well, we'll bring you this story on the next edition of Our American Stories. Be sure to catch it on iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. A whole lot of comments, calls, questions that we've gotten to today. And we'll, of course, keep doing it, trying to keep it focused on the local aspect, including, of course, the many races and many different positions at hand for the upcoming ballot. So, stay more tuned on that. One of the things we'll be looking forward to, by the way, campaign finance statements coming out this week. A little closer to the 15th for the federal elections, but giving us some sense about where some of the campaigns stand, at least their resources, as we inch ever closer to the election, those 30 days out. So that'll do it for us here today. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll, of course, do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier crash Gateway West before Piedra Street exit. All lanes are back open there. That accident's cleared. Gateway West at Hawkins, an injury accident reported. The right lane is blocked due to an accident South Desert Boulevard at Vinton. And a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder on the 54 Gateway North at Sun Valley Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso, traffic.
A lot of things have changed with the real estate market this year. Hi, it's Glenn. But with Brian Birds of EXP Realty, you don't have to worry about whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, because Brian's exclusive options and unique strategies make the market work for you, whatever's going on. Brian spends 25 times more on marketing than most agents make in a year. That means he's going to get your home sold faster and for more money, because the potential buyers will see your home. And that is what creates demand, which gets you faster result and top dollar. In fact, he guarantees to sell it or he'll buy it himself. Another great option you need to sell quickly is Brian's instant cash offer. No showings, open houses, no hassle, just money in your pocket. Brian Birds is the agent that I would trust in El Paso. Besides that, well over 400 people have given Brian a 5-star Google review. You can read them by Googling Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S, or check out brianbirds.com.
Is there a calculator that can't compute in your kitchen drawer? Recycle it at Staples. A shredder that won't shred under your bed? Or a collection of cables cluttering